Let me tell you guys about God real quick, okay? It's no secret that emotionally I'm going through a lot of things with losing Mika, and it's a lot. You know, I'm extremely sad but very grateful for the life that I have, for my kids and for everything else. But my brother was recently very, very sick. I want to take the time to really thank you guys for all the prayers that and the encouragement that you guys have shown my family and I, and truly it's appreciated. So Monday my brother was fine, walking, talking, doing everything as usual. Tuesday he went in for an infusion for his sickle cell treatment. That was his second dose, and he started to have chest pain within 10 minutes of the infusion. That being said, he went to the hospital, and they gave him IV fluids and pain medication, because by then he was going into full-blown sickle cell crisis. He reported that he was cold, and obviously if you guys know anything about sickle cell, you know that they don't really tolerate the cold weather, because it restricts the vessels even more, which causes a lot more pain. They could not take care of the room temperature, so he was upset. Then he was like, just discharge me. They sent him home. He went home. He tried taking a few hot baths, but that did not help with the pain. By the next morning, he started to be very delusional. He was having conversations with my deceased cousin, and he was very confused. His wife got worried, checked his oxygen. She's also a nurse. Checked his oxygen level, and he was in the 70s. She called 911. The paramedics got here. They put him on oxygen, put him on 2 liters. He finally got up to 80% saturation, and then by the time he made it to the hospital, he was on a heated high flow setting at 91%. That being said, the night before, his hemoglobin was 11, and that morning when he went back to the hospital, his hemoglobin dropped to a 6. That's a huge drop, from 11 to 6 for his hemoglobin. So they did all kinds of CAT scans trying to see if he's bleeding somewhere. He's not bleeding anywhere. His red blood cells are just rapidly dying. His heart rate was in the 150s, maintaining for hours, over 6 hours continuously. His blood pressure was in the 170s over the 110s. His respiration rate was maintaining in the 40s, and he was maintaining like this for hours. He was becoming more and more confused. His vitals were more and more unstable. They did blood cultures. They did chest x-ray. Chest x-ray was negative. There's no pneumonia, no infection of any sort. Blood cultures were not growing anything. Urine culture, nothing. There seems to be absolutely no infection in this man's body. None. No infection. Yet he's showing all the clinical signs of going into septic shock. So the doctors were trying to do the best that they could with the situation, trying to figure out why he was so rapidly declining and sustaining in that state. Before we knew it, he started to go into respiratory failure. So they suggested to put him in an induced coma and to intubate him. So they did that. Of course, it's very emotional for us in the family, because my brother usually does not respond well with sedation. The last time he had to have surgery, and they coded him twice when they tried to wake him up. So, of course, that was a tough decision for us to make. And his wife, such a trooper, she did what she had to do. She made the call, and they induced coma, and they intubated. That being said, he was breathing over the vent, and so nothing was really working. So they kept further sedating a little bit more, until he became a little bit more comfortable and less restless. So now that he is intubated, his respiration is somewhat controlled in the 28 respiration per minute. His heart rate is better controlled in the 90s to 100, and his blood pressure is better maintained. They tried to investigate furthermore. Still, they couldn't find any infection, yet his body was going through this severe inflammatory response. So they diagnosed them as septic shock, yet there was no infection. So the doctors started to feel like they were starting to hit a wall, and his doctor suggested that we transfer him to a different hospital because they felt like there was nothing else they could do, or they knew how or what to do. So that became the plan. But before he transferred him, he did one more test because he wanted to check for this very rare illness, and the test came back very elevated. So then they suspected that he had something called HLH. I personally had never heard of this illness. Apparently, it's an autoimmune disease that you mostly see in kids. My brother's 40 years old, and it's very fatal. When we went to the new hospital, the doctor said that they had treated 3 cases of HLH in the past, and the first 2 died within the first 3 days of the diagnosis. However, my brother was already going on 5 days, so he's already beating the odds. In the meantime, he's still going into respiratory failure. His kidneys started to fail, he stopped urinating, and then his liver started to fail as well. So he was going into multi-system failure. This HLH disease is no joke. It's nothing to play with. It's very severe and it's very fatal. Now they started talking about what could have possibly triggered the HLH. By the time they needed to do a biopsy of his spine, and they were able to confirm the HLH diagnosis. The treatment for it is very severe and aggressive chemotherapy. They were thinking that maybe what triggered the HLH was lymphoma, which is like cancer in the lymph nodes, or it could have been actually from a cold that he had 2 weeks prior that triggered an inflammatory response, and so on and so forth. Till this day, we still don't really know what caused it. If it was the infusion that he was getting for his sickle cell, the cold that he had the week before, but I think right now they're erring on the side of he does not have lymphoma. When things started to get really bad, I made a post and I asked people to pray for my brother's health and his recovery. Let me tell you about the power of prayer. Okay, for those of you who don't know how powerful prayers are, we are a praying family. It doesn't mean that because we are a praying family that tragedy don't knock on our door. Obviously it does, because Mika's gone, okay? But praying did such an improvement in my brother's health. My brother was intubated for 10 days. And as of yesterday, you guys, he is breathing on his own. He is awake and breathing on his own. The doctors have no idea how he is improving so fast with this diagnosis. And we keep telling them, you are witnessing one of God's miracles. It's nothing but God. It's nothing but God. So right now, his heart rate is normal with no extra medication. His blood pressure stabilized. No more pressors. He is awake. He's breathing on his own. No oxygen, still sitting at 97%. His kidneys are fully restored. His liver fully restored. God, thank you, God. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you, thank you, thank you, because our God is able. My God is powerful. Do you hear me? He's powerful. Don't ever tell me that prayers don't work, because they do. They do. When I saw my sister-in-law with so much fear in her eyes, she was terrified that she could lose her husband. I know that pain. I know that pain. And I prayed to God and I thought, God, 2 of us cannot be going through this. Who's gonna hold me up if she falls? God heard me. He heard me, and he heard your prayers for me. Thank you, guys. Truly, thank you. This is my testimony of what God has done for my family. I hope this message gives you a little, I'm sorry, a little motivation to not lose faith, because God is real and prayers work. I hope you guys have a good day. He's doing much better, but he's still very weak. He's still very sick. I'm on my way to the hospital right now. Just wanted to give you guys a little update from my last post when I asked you guys to pray.